Well, AES wants to hike your rates about 12-15%, and AES says they need it because of inflation, the cost of doing business. No folks say, not so fast. So joining us in studio is Kerwin Olson. Kerwin, which organization are you with again? It's Friday. I lose track after a while.
Yeah, no worries. I am the executive director at the Citizens Action Coalition.
The CAC.
Correct. That's right.
Not to be confused with the BBC, which is the British Broadcasting Company.
That's correct.
All right. Or the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Company.
Or the CDC, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll leave the CDC
yeah,
out of this
let's not talk about that.
for right now. Go get your vaccinations, folks. Just be done with it. So what is your issue with AES and their proposed rate hike?
Well, our issue with this rate hike and rate hikes in general right now is what we've seen year over year is the highest average increase in at least 20 years in the state of Indiana, facing electricity customers. AES customers have realized a 12% increase year over year from 2024 to 2025. And what we're seeing is enormous pressure on consumers, everyday working class folks trying to make ends meet. Having to make tough choices between healthcare, food, paying utility bills, paying rent. Meanwhile, AES and other electric monopolies are extremely financially healthy, continuing to deliver dividends to their shareholders, seem to be in good shape. And so the question we ask is who needs help? Who needs relief? Is it these monopoly electric utilities realizing significant profits? Or is it the everyday customers struggling to make ends meet? In addition, AES bills were already scheduled to go up dramatically without this rate increase. And this is just adding salt to the wound, if you will. The idea that amidst this crisis, a crisis so much so that the governor has made some strong words lately about utility bill increases and the pressures that consumers are facing. For some strange reason, AES decided to file a rate case in the midst of this crisis that Hoosier consumers are facing, despite already being pre-approved for significant rate increases. So when is enough enough?
Now, with the AES folks, we had a conversation with them the other day, basically saying, like, hey, we're trying to keep our rates under control, but inflationary costs, just like it hits everybody else, whether it's gasoline, groceries, inflation hits us as well, and we need to cover, at the very least, our inflationary costs. But by the look on your face, you're not buying that.
Well, I don't see where they inflationary costs are hitting everyone, including customers and their ratepayers. Why does AES need to realize a 77% increase in profits if they get what they want? From 2024 to 2027, AES will realize a 77% increase in profit. Meanwhile, but that is on the backs of their customers who, over that same time period, should AES get what they're asking for, customers will realize a $51 a month increase in their electric bills. And that's just simply not fair. We have a regulatory commission that is there to equally balance the interests of the public with the interest of the utility. And we don't see AES struggling financially, struggling to pay their bills. We see consumers struggling to pay their bills.
In addition to, like I said, AES said they got the rate increases, and basically this to cover the basic cost of delivering electricity is what they argue is the primary function for those rate increases.
Well, that's the cost of doing business. We have, state franchise monopolies. It is their legal obligation to deliver reliable service 365, 24/7. That includes investments from the companies, investments from their shareholders to keep the lights on and deliver that service. And the reality of these investor-owned electric utilities is that they don't want to spend one single penny of their own money to keep the lights on. They want to recover every single penny from their ratepayers. Why are they not flowing back some of those earnings, some of those profits back into the community, back into their system? Why do ratepayers have to pay all their costs? That is they have the privilege of a monopoly service territory, a kingdom, if you will, captive customers who have no choice but to take the provision of electricity service from them. That's just the cost of doing business. Testimony is going to be filed in this case by Citizens Action Coalition and other intervening parties, and we'll have the opportunity to present our facts and our thoughts to the commission at that time.
We're talking today to Kerwin Olson. Kerwin is with the Citizens Action Coalition. They are fighting against the proposed rate hike by the folks over at AES. And in full disclosure, AES is a sponsor of the cheat sheet, but also this person who kind of helped sort of coordinate this interview is also a cheat sheet subscriber. So no one can call us being biased. My rule: eat everybody's beer, drink everybody's food. That way, no one can ever call you biased. So that's always been my rule. But Colonel, we're glad to have you here. So when we talk about this $51 rate increase, is that per month? Is that per year?
That's per month. If they get what they want between July 2024 and July 2027, that's what customers will be realizing on their bills. And that's in addition to the significant increases they've already realized. This is their third rate case in the last 5 years, in addition to the other rate increases that they get approved through what's called tracker proceedings at the commission. They were just approved 5 years ago for $1.2 billion for quote-unquote grid modernization. Those are the rate increases customers are primarily realizing today, in addition to the increases from their last rate case. Those are already baked in. But despite that spending, their restoration time for customers after storm outages has increased. So how about we ask them, hey, what'd you do with that $1.2 billion? If that was to modernize the grid, improve reliability, improve restoration time, they've gone backwards. How about we check what they've done with the money they're already collecting from customers before we give them any more?
It's interesting you bring that because one of the things, like I said, when we had our conversation with the folks at AES the other day, they said part of the cost is labor because you got to have people to do services, check the lines, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing I thought was interesting was the tree folks who had to come in, cut trees because trees had power lines, a whole 9 yards. And for some reason, because of a lot of the storms we've had lately, that's been sort of a one of the, not the reason for the rate increase, but a big reason for the rate increases.
Okay. Again, my response would be the same. That is the cost of doing business, if you will. That comes along with the privilege of having a monopoly service area or kingdom, if you will. That's just the cost of doing business. And again, reflecting on my previous comment about they don't want to spend any of their own money. Every single penny that they spend, they want to recover from customers. And we used to have more of a balance when it came to utility and the way in which they conducted their business. They reinvested in their system. They delivered some of those earnings back into the system, and we've seen a complete flip-flop of that. In Indiana, we have our utilities, our local utilities, owned by out-of-state energy holding companies because of the supportive political and regulatory environment that we have in Indiana. So the energy holding companies that own these Indiana public utilities, these are nothing but cash cows to those energy holding companies, delivering all the earnings upstream to the parent companies, to their shareholders, not delivering much in the way of reinvesting in their system with some of those dollars. And we need to get back to the idea of a public utility being part of the community, having a vested interest in that community, rather than just being cash cows for these out-of-state energy holding companies.
So I'll make sure I understand here. So are you saying that there should be no out-of-state owned utilities? All utilities should be owned, or at least in the monopoly universe, in the regulated monopoly universe, that the old Indianapolis Power should be owned by Indianapolis or Marion County, or at the very least Indiana?
Most certainly. The old we used to call them intermittent power and light. We need a new acronym now that they've changed their name to AES. What I'm saying is the farther away from the community that the ownership of that utility is, you have a shift in what the priorities of that ownership is. And when you have energy holding companies owning local public utilities, then what you have is priority on their fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, to the detriment of the communities and to the detriment of customers. And so the farther away they get, the more expensive things come and the more distance they get from their communities. And we've seen, Bloomberg published in July, early July, that BlackRock is looking into buying AES. Is that why they're filing this rate case? Increase their earnings, try to get an increase in their profit margin, become more attractive to potential sellers. We've seen BlackRock recently buy a public utility in Minnesota. Is that the route we want to go in Indiana? BlackRock already has an interest in NIPSCO up in northwest Indiana. Elliott Management has an interest in Centerpoint down in southwest Indiana. We have a Shanghai Corporation with a vested interest in Duke Energy, Indiana. Are we now going to allow our public utilities in Indiana to be wholly owned by folks like BlackRock? That's what I'm talking about. We need our public utilities owned and managed by folks in the community that care about the community and that understand the struggles that their customers are facing. We are seeing half of AES customers on a monthly basis receiving disconnect notices in the mail. That, if anything, that is screaming an affordability crisis here in the city of Indianapolis. That's not good. Half of AES customers in the city of Indianapolis on a monthly basis receive disconnect notices. That should be a red flag to the city of Indianapolis, to the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, and the General Assembly that folks can't pay their bills, and we need to do something. And the idea that AES is coming in asking for more on top of what they're already receiving, we find outrageous.
We're talking to Kerwin Olson. Kerwin is with the Citizens Action Coalition, sort of a consumer advocacy group in the rate utility world. So we're talking about AES and their proposed rate hikes, and specifically. But Kerwin, I want to switch gears a little bit. You talked about some of the other folks, NIPSCO, the Southern Indiana. How is the state of? Let me ask you sort of generally. How is the state of utility regulation in Indiana going overall?
Well, we have a challenging regulatory system in our view for consumers. We're one of only.
I thought essentially you said challenging. That's a little vein pop in your head.
Well, I mean, we're one of only 4 states in the country where those that regulate the investor-owned electric utilities are either not directly elected by the public or confirmed by one or both chambers of the General Assembly. They serve at the will and the pleasure of the governor. And what we see is unaccountable and even unknown regulators before the public. If we brought some accountability into the process, would that improve outcomes for customers? Probably. But we have a extremely favorable regulatory environment in the state of Indiana. Again, that's why we see these energy holding companies. And, CAC is, we've been calling the IURC a rubber stamp for a long time, but we also have a legislature who is complicit in these rate increases by year after year after year, passing favorable legislation at the behest of the investor-owned electric utilities that, remove the discretion, the flexibility, and the authority of the General Assembly or of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to do their jobs. I don't think the General Assembly understands that it is the role of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. Their primary function is a surrogate to competition. These are monopoly utilities. They have no competition. And the idea when we created these regulatory commissions over 100 years ago was these would act as that surrogate to competition since it's not a competitive marketplace. And if you reduce the authority, the discretion, the flexibility of those regulators, you are further diminishing any competition these investor-owned electric utilities have. So, yeah, we have our challenges in Indiana with respect to our regulatory environment.
Let's talk about data centers.
Okay.
those are always fun. We got to talk about a data center here in Indianapolis, Franklin, the Franklin Township area, southeastern corner of Marion County. Another data center being constructed up in, Boone County and that neck of the woods. Then there's a question about, obviously data centers take a lot of water and a lot of electricity because electricity powers the data and the water keeps it cool and make sure it doesn't explode.
Right.
So, but then there's a question about who pays who pays for the data center? Is it the data center people? Is it taxpayers? Who do you think is going to get a foot in the bill?
Well, ratepayers are already realizing rate increases across the country because of data centers and big tech swallowing up all the available capacity and energy on the wholesale market, driving up prices for everybody. We're seeing significant transmission build-outs to serve data centers that are hitting customers' electric bills right now. And we all know the insatiable appetite these data centers have for both water and electricity. And we're going to be seeing some filings at the Regulatory Commission with respect to serving these data centers. And we're hopeful, that we'll have a positive outcome at the Regulatory Commission with respect to who does have to bear these costs. But we're very concerned. We passed some weak legislation at the legislature that pretends that it's going to protect ratepayers, yet it's vague, it's opaque, and it still requires ratepayers pick up 20% of the tab. And when you're talking about serving data centers that require a gigawatt, if not more, of electricity, we're talking billions of dollars. 20% of billions of dollars is a lot of money that ratepayers simply can't afford. So, yeah, we're very, very concerned with the implications that data centers are currently having and will have on ratepayer bills in the future. And again, you're talking about big tech, some of the largest corporations this world has ever seen, Google, Meta, Microsoft. They can afford these investments. The idea that the everyday struggling Hoosier ratepayer has to subsidize folks like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos is absurd on its face, and that notion should be fundamentally rejected by the IURC. And we'll see, once those cases are filed, what the outcomes will be for customers. But the legislative roadmap, if you will, that was created after the last legislative session, we're very concerned about significant costs being passed on to customers.
Kerwin Olson, the Citizens Action Coalition, with us for a few minutes on the program today. There's the consumer advocacy group on the utility side of things. Kerwin, I want to push back just a little bit on the whole data center thing.
Sure.
Obviously, the purpose of a data center is to store data. we've all got telephones, we've all got cameras, we've all got pictures. All that stuff has got to go someplace. So should not I, as a consumer, have to pay to a certain degree for my storage space?
Well, we reject the notion that these data centers are about our storage on Box.com or Dropbox or our Netflix or Spotify feeds. They want us to believe that's what this is all about. I've got no problem right now watching my YouTube TV and checking out my files on Box.com. These data centers are all about AI and potentially some other stuff. We don't need these data centers for cloud storage. And so that's what I would push back on. Are these data centers really about Dropbox and Spotify, or are these data centers really about building out this massive AI network to get ahead of China? We hear that rhetoric all the time. So I don't know that I agree that data centers are about cloud storage.
Well, let's switch and go the AI route. In the past 6 months, I've used AI a lot more than ever had before, with pleadings, with thoughts, pictures. I actually use AI to help write my political gossip column because it kind of cleans up things. So, is AI about to become sort of the new tool, in our technology universe? Does that change your perception of these data centers and what they're used for?
Not in the least. We have lots of concerns about AI for many, many reasons. I'm not an expert on AI, but we have concerns with AI, especially around surveillance, job losses, and other things. And let's talk about jobs when it comes to data centers. We all know, it's well understood, these data centers themselves actually create very few permanent jobs. That's a fact. They even admit that themselves. But the other challenge with data centers when it comes to jobs is because of the extraordinary investment that's required to host these hyperscaler data centers. It's a potential blocking potential future development that would create more jobs, be better investments for those communities. So we're not convinced, number one, that all of these AI data centers are necessary and required. We believe this is a gold rush, if you will, to spend that capital and make more profits. And so we sort of question the intent and the need for this massive build-out of AI data centers.
Final question for you. Got about a minute left here. So what's next in the data center AES technology energy consumption world?
Well, there's a couple of votes coming up at the city council with respect to the Google data center for Southwest Indiana, or for Southwest Indianapolis. As far as the AES rate case goes, testimony is going to be filed in that case. I believe that's next week. AES will file rebuttal testimony, and that will go to hearing later this year. The fate of that city council vote, it looks good for the opponents of the Google data center, but the don't count your chickens before they hatch. Google, AES, others are lobbying the mayor and the city council pretty hard on this stuff. So we'll see what happens when they call the roll.
Or don't count your data before you download the flash drive.
Yes, better analogy. Yes, well done.
Kerwin Olson, Citizens Action Coalition, thank you very much for being with us today.
Sure thing.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you having us.